The US and UK have carried out new joint strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen, including on the capital Sanaa. The Pentagon says they've hit underground storage sites as well as locations associated with the group's missile and air surveillance capabilities. It's the second time the two allies have coordinated to attack Houthi targets in Yemen. The Houthis have previously vowed to continue their attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. We can cross to Washington now, and DW correspondent Benjamin Alvarez-Gruber, who is following the story for us, joins us. Hello, Benjamin. What more can you tell us about these strikes?
So as you just said, Eddie, this is the second joint strike conducted with the UK, with the United Kingdom, on 8 Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen. That's an operation today that had the support of Australia, of Bahrain, of Canada and of the Netherlands. That's what the US Central Command stated in a press release earlier today. Washington hopes that these strikes will degrade the capability that the Houthis have to continue their attacks on US and also on UK ships, but also on international commercial shipping in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. The Houthis began attacking these vessels in November. They say that they are responding to Israel's offensive in Gaza. That is something that Washington denies, says there's no relation between these two conflicts. But the Houthis vowed to continue targeting shipping until Israel ends the war. And they now also, after this strikes, it also said that there will be revenge.
As you said earlier, Benjamin, this is not the first strike. There's been a couple of strikes in the past, but it has not seemed to have deterred the Houthis. So how far is the Biden administration willing to go to stop them?
That's right, and that's also why experts are criticizing that. And even President Biden acknowledged that these attacks now, these strikes are not stopping them. During a White House press briefing, President Biden said that the airstrikes were not stopping the Houthis, but also said that the US would keep targeting the group anyways. And it's clear that hoping to degrade the capabilities of the Houthis is not coercing them to stop. The administration says that they are well equipped also by Iran and are likely to continue the attacks on this shipping of these ships in one of the most important shipping lanes worldwide. And therefore, the US, the UK, that also had conducted these strikes today, and other Western nations that are supporting this coalition have a geopolitical interest in countering Iran's use of the Houthis as a proxy without directly risking its own assets. But let's be frank, I mean, the war in Yemen is a forgotten war, and experts also see this as an opportunity for the Houthis who want to rehabilitate their reputation at home, to present themselves as the defenders of Palestinians and of the people of Gaza, even though Washington says that it's not related. So the goal to try to beat the Houthis militarily without addressing any of their demands or what they're saying is not working, neither for the United States nor for Saudi Arabia, that has been fighting the Houthis for many years. So now broader conflict in the region is definitely something that President Biden does not want to see in this election year. His support is also fading due to Washington's unconditional support for Israel.
Right. DW correspondent Benjamin Alvarez-Gruber, thank you.
The European Union has reached a preliminary agreement to launch a military operation in the Red Sea to secure merchant shipping. The EU's top diplomat, Josep Borrell, announced the initiative as foreign ministers met in Brussels today. Military force would only be used for defensive purposes. European warships and warning systems would be deployed to repel attacks by Yemen's Houthi militants. The operation is expected to begin next month. Well, for more now, I'm joined by our correspondent, Rosie Burchard. She's in Brussels. She's been following this meeting of EU foreign ministers. Rosie, good to see you. You were at this press conference where Josep Borrell talked about this mission. Tell us a little bit more about what he said.
Well, the EU here trying to come up with some sort of response to this spiralling violence in the Middle East. Now, What Borrell said is that nothing has been fully decided yet. What we've had at this meeting of EU ministers is an agreement in principle. And in fact, Brent, when I asked him, so when will this happen and what exactly will it look like? Well, he actually proceeded to list off a series of things which still have to be decided. For example, which country would head up this mission, when exactly it would be deployed. However, we do have some insights because I've been in diplomatic briefings on the plan that's on EU diplomats' table still to be discussed over the next few weeks. And what we're talking about here is basically a plan to send European warships to the Red Sea region to try and protect merchant vessels, so to protect cargo, to accompany them and to defend them. Now, not all EU countries will take part. Of course, there are some EU countries which are landlocked and therefore don't have any sort of naval military assets at their disposal. But there are also some countries that have said they will not take part, for example, Spain. We do expect Belgium to send a frigate and likely Germany will be participating as well. And of course, here, all of this in response to those ongoing attacks by Houthi rebels against cargo ships trying to navigate and ship goods through the Red Sea.
And we understand this mission, the military would be used only for defensive purposes, but still you're going to have these ships, they're going to be possibly in harm's way. I'm wondering, has there been discussion about whether or not this mission could prompt a possible escalation in what we're seeing in the Red Sea?
Yeah, no doubt there has been discussion about that, and EU diplomats have been talking about this already for a few days and are likely to do so until February 19th, which is when we're expecting them to come up with some sort of a final agreement. I think what they'd say to that concern around escalation is that this mission is going to be defensive in nature. That doesn't mean, however, Brent, that we're not looking at any sort of action. I mean, we are talking about, according to diplomats I've spoken to, the capacity to be, shooting drones and missiles out of the sky if these ships that the mission is set to protect are in fact in danger. Now, EU member states are going to be continuing to discuss this. However, we don't yet have that final exactly how it's going to finally look like. But we know one thing, which is that they will not try to make it exactly any sort of replica of what the United States is doing. We know EU member states will not be participating in any US attacks on Houthi targets within Yemen. And in fact, one EU diplomat put it to me, the way he said it, he said, well, actually, the European Union here is more cautious than the US.
DW correspondent Rosie Burchard with the latest tonight from Brussels. Rosie, as always, thank you.